Take a journey with amazing wildlife as we explore the many creatures found in the world around us. Each episode, the animals are the star, as we highlight 3 species with fun and insightful facts in an audio documentary-style presentation. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as our website, AmazingWildlifePodcast.com. Join us for the show dedicated to the wonders of the animal kingdom, Amazing Wildlife.
The folklore in Kid Cryptid wouldn't exist if it weren't for the rich history and vibrant cultures these stories come from. While we do our best to provide accurate information, we recognize that we are, at best, amateurs here. This podcast is best considered for entertainment purposes only, and it comes from a place of love and respect for the peoples behind the lore. Now, on with the show.
I'm Elias.
I'm Sean, and you are listening to Kid Cryptid, the podcast where we talk about creatures that cause arguments about as much as politics at Thanksgiving dinner, known as cryptids. How's it going, Elias?
Good.
I've got something today that causes a lot of disagreement in the cryptid world. Have you ever heard of the Ozark Howler?
The Ozark Howler or Howl?
Howler.
How? Is it from Ozark?
Well, yeah, but have you heard of it?
No.
I hadn't either until I went looking for a topic that was a little bit more off the beaten path. But it's not its obscurity that makes it contentious as much as the status of its existence. Now, I know you're thinking that that's the definition of a cryptid, and you're right. But in this case, the waters have been further muddied by time and the internet.
Excuse me?
I know. I'll explain more here. So, before I start getting too confusing, let's go into some basics. Do you know where the Ozarks are?
South?
Sort of. They cover, well, they're mountains that cover part of Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas.
Oh.
So, they can get a little southward. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, so you're not totally off there. They're also heavily forested, and they're the perfect area for animals of all kinds to hide out in. So it only makes sense that some people would report seeing something unknown in such a place.
Like deer, because they sort of look like trees. Because, like, their antlers and then their fur sort of blend in.
Well, that is how camouflage works. You are correct there. Now, in the case of the Ozark Howler, it's reported that it's roughly the size of a black bear with a thick body, stocky legs, and thick, shaggy fur. Some versions state that it has horns, while others don't mention them at all. It's also said to have a tail, but again, accounts don't agree on whether it's a short or long one. It gets its name, though, from the sound it makes. It's described as a cross between a wolf's howl and an elk bugle. It has a loud, piercing cry.
So are you talking about, like, this? I'm just going to make up a name, like, a barrelope?
Well, that's where it's interesting. So its body is big, kind of like a bear, but then its face is described as being kind of cat-like.
Are we going back to the fox thing?
The fox thing?
You know, that other cryptid. The tiger thing.
Oh, the thylacine?
Yeah.
No. First of all, this is in the United States, and the thylacine is very much Australian.
Oh. Okay. Continue.
Now, as far as I'm concerned, this sounds kind of terrifying to me. Like, I get that elk are pretty harmless animals so long as you don't do something stupid to really make them mad.
Yeah.
But the sound they make is kind of scary.
Like, it might be like this. Okay, I cannot do that.
You do? Okay, so you've heard an elk?
I've heard it, like, I know those things that my uncle watches about hunting.
Okay. So, for those that don't know, and it was something you heard in a dark forest, you'd probably pee your pants. adding some wolfishness to that certainly would ramp up the fear factor. Now, stories of the Howler date back to the 1800s. The earliest actually involves frontiersman Daniel Boone. While hunting in Missouri sometime in 1810, he wrote a letter to his sister about shooting and wounding an animal. In his own words, he described it as follows: "Black and swarthy with horns on its scalp. Ignorant of its name, I am told of the sound that it makes with a terrible howling at night. Warnings of this to settlers should be passed along." Later in 1816, it said he shot and killed one. This would have been pretty impressive considering that he would have been 80 years old at that point. Now, as with many of Boone's exploits, it's difficult to tell where fact ends and tall tale begins. The letter to his sister is interesting, though, considering his deep knowledge of woods and creatures within. For him to not know what he was shooting at is kind of different.
Yeah, but now I'm thinking about it. I think I might have, got something very rare that might have happened. But you never know, because, now I'm thinking that, the elk and then the dog howling part just went together, and then he just, maybe that.
Well, and sightings aren't just limited to long ago either. As recently as 2015, a person has claimed to not only have seen the creature, but taken pictures of it.
Are they on the internet?
Well, that's a good question. There were some pictures on the internet, but I couldn't tell you which ones were supposed to be real and which ones were obviously fake or photoshopped.
Oh, so great. The internet's trying to lie to us and then also not lie.
Oh yeah, you've got to be really careful about what you find on the internet.
Just like Pokemon cards, because, some of them are fake.
So what is the Ozark Howler? Depending on who you ask, there are several theories. There's some speculation that people had been keeping pet panthers and that the animals escaped into the wild. Not expecting to see a panther in the heartland of America, people have assumed that they're seeing something supernatural. Others think that the howler is related to another cryptid, the black dog. Not to get too off track, the black dog is believed to be an omen of death that appears in solitary places and is only seen at certain times. This would certainly help explain the howler's elusiveness. Looking more to science again, there are some who think that it could be a surviving species of saber-toothed tiger that's hunting the mountainous forests of the Ozarks.
Wait, do bearcats live in the Ozarks?
No.
Oh.
And remember, we've talked about bearcats. They're civets.
Okay, but I was just I was thinking that I was thinking it was a messed up bearcat with horns.
Well, it's probably about the right size, and they do look weird. Fun fact about civets. Some people claim that coffee beans that civets have eaten and have pooped out are very tasty, or make very tasty coffee. It's also very expensive, so...
Barf!
Yeah, I don't know. What rich people do with their money is none of my business, but...
And also, the weird people...
Yeah, so there's your fun science fact for the day, kids. Yay, civets.
Civets, please don't eat any coffee beans. That's just gross.
Now, you ready for things to take a bit of a weird turn? Or weirder than what we just talked about?
Weirder.
Between all of those options, there's plenty of room for debate. However, what really throws the wrench into things happened in the late 1990s. Several well-known cryptozoologists received emails making claims about the Ozark Howler. Something seemed off about them, and rather than go looking for the creature, they went looking for the source of the emails. Their efforts led them to a college student who, when confronted, admitted to the whole thing being a hoax. He'd been inspired by how the chupacabra had essentially gone viral years earlier and wanted to see if he could send the cryptid community on a wild goose chase. He claimed he'd made up the whole thing, the legends, the description, everything. He even made multiple websites with information about the Howler to make it seem like people had been talking about the creature for years. As a result, several books and articles have been written about the Howler being nothing but a fake. Within the cryptozoological community, there's very little belief that the creature is real.
Very little belief. Does that mean like everybody thinks the creature is real and some people do not think it's real?
Not a whole lot of people. So people who make a living studying cryptids and trying to find them think that this is really just a fake.
They should be fired.
Why?
Because they have to believe if they want to see a cryptid.
So you're saying cryptid existence is based purely on belief?
Well, they have to just believe in that. Because if you don't want to catch a if you don't believe in a cryptid and you're on a cryptid catch team, then you must be fired.
Well, you want to make sure that you're finding real things. They're not fairies. It's not belief based.
Well, I'm not talking about fairies.
And yet people still report seeing them, despite most cryptozoologists thinking it doesn't exist. With the water so muddied, it's like the stories of Daniel Boone. Where do you separate fact from legend? Which came first, the sightings or the hoax? Are people only seeing things because the idea was planted in their head by that college student? Admittedly, there's never been any physical evidence of such a creature recovered. Most reported encounters have more to do with hearing rather than seeing, and it's easy for the imagination to run wild when they hear something unfamiliar in the forest. So what are you thinking, Elias? What's the deal with the Howler?
I think the Howler was just a misunderstood creature that was put together by something. Like, I think it was just something that was born different than what it was born from.
So you're saying it was a mutated creature and people are misunderstanding what they're seeing?
I'm not saying like they're misunderstanding. I'm just saying it's a misunderstood creature. Like, it hasn't attacked anybody, has it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. But
it looks like something that would probably like to eat people, but as far as I know, none of the stories involve people being attacked.
But like, still, it has a cat face, and I love cats too. But also, it's as big as a black bear, has a cat face, has a tail and horns. I'm thinking like this must be a bull that was like just weird, cause like it has horns.
Maybe. Depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. If the whole thing is made up, I'm surprised we don't hear more stories about it.
Yeah.
And even with more variation. I mean, you can make it whatever you want, really. Maybe you should write a Howler story when you're off school for the next couple of weeks.
I don't know very much about howlers.
Well, depending on who you talk to here, it sounds like you can just make it whatever you want it to be.
So you're saying that I can make it part cat, part elk?
Yeah.
Seriously? And as big as a buffalo?
No, that's bigger than a black bear.
What about as big as a deer?
Yeah, that's a little bit fairer, I think. Maybe lighter than a black bear, but yeah.
That must be a very light, animal. Maybe I can make it as light as a bunny, as big as, well, I don't think so. Because, if it was to be as light as a bunny, then you would have to make it a bunny.
I think that takes us back to the jackalope.
Yeah. Maybe I could give it, instead of, like antlers, buffalo horns.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode. You got anything else, Elias?
If you spot something like that, tell me. So if I want to make a story, I can.
All right, Elias is waiting for Howler stories, folks. Get out there and get finding something weird.
Just like something like a fruit bat. Because they're bigger than a normal bat.
All right, and with that,
I'm Elias.
I'm Sean, and you've been listening to Kid Cryptid. Until next time.